Well, thank you and good morning. It's, I don't know, am I looking out at a group of non-football fans? I have to tell you, one of the benefits of being from Alaska and watching something like the Super Bowl is our Super Bowl begins at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And you're done by 6:30. You can tell the kids, okay, now it's time to go do your homework. Back here, man, this thing goes on all night. So I don't know. It drugged me out a little bit this morning, but thankfully we had that 35-minute reprieve where we could go and get a little homework done, so it worked for me. I don't know about you, but I am honored to be with you yet again. Very distinguished group of public officials, private citizens, and again, to be here, I don't want to say on an annual basis because that commits me for next year, but I will suggest to you that it is an incredibly important audience and one that I am honored to stand before you. Every person in this room clearly has distinct and important responsibilities. It is you that must ensure that people in this country have adequate, reliable, and secure supplies of energy at prices and on terms that are just and reasonable. So for those that are looking for who turned out the lights in New Orleans, you're probably all the responsible parties here. I'm just putting you on notice there. But joking aside, I think we do recognize that that responsibility is truly there. For those of us in public office, that responsibility is a public trust. And for those of you in private life, assuring that people have the energy that they need every hour of every day on terms, again, that they can afford is no less a responsibility. Now, as I mentioned, last year when I was honored to stand at this podium, I addressed the need for balance in the application of our energy and our environmental laws. I have been one that has long held that striking that appropriate balance is a key requirement of our time. It's critical to our economy, to our prosperity, and truly our security all at once. Now, since last year, I've given a lot more thought to the imperative for balance and for the need to clarify, even to reimagine, if you will, the muddle that we currently know as federal energy policy. And candidly, I've had plenty of time to think about it. In the Senate, we have spent a lot of time out of regular order and beyond that in recess. And when we do engage in debate, energy has rarely been the topic, unfortunately. And as you know, as a direct result of all of this, we have not made nearly the progress that our energy situation demands or that our kids or our grandkids surely deserve. I think that there has to be a new conversation, a better conversation. And I read the article in the Post, maybe some of you saw it this weekend, that they say, enough of these national conversations. We're having a conversation about guns. We're having a conversation about immigration. And now I'm standing before you and saying, we need a conversation about energy. But I think that we do. I really think that we do. And I intend to start that today. New technologies, we all know, are emerging, changing the facts as so many thought that they knew them. And our nation's energy discourse is really just not keeping up. It's time, perhaps despite some vastly different perspectives, to come together to address the crucial and difficult issues surrounding energy. So, desiring to hit that restart button, I have worked with my Energy and Natural Resources Committee staff to prepare a report that we call Energy 2020, a vision for America's energy future. Now, often you'll see these nicely bound copies of reports that have been made, and you look through them and you look at the charts or you go to the section that is directly pertinent to you, and then it sits. I'm not going to let this one sit. And it's incumbent upon me, my staff, those on the Energy Committee, to make sure that what we do with this document that we've been working on for a year now is to really utilize it, to use it as that blueprint, if you will. Now, the first thing that I've got to tell you as we talk about this Energy 2020 is that there is no energy policy that is a perfect vision. But I think we recognize you got the year 2020 approaching us fast. I think it's time that we reevaluate the policies that we currently have in place to think about what we can and really what should come next, and to set some realistic goals that we can achieve by the end of this decade. And I'd ask you just to think about some of the trends that we're already seeing. For decades now, our energy policies have been crafted on the premise of increasing scarcity, that we're running out of oil, that we don't have enough of this. But the fact of the matter is what we are seeing is increasing supply. Instead of absence, we're finding ourselves on the verge of abundance. And there may never have been a time when we have more potential for energy production or for energy productivity. And we can bring that energy to market, and we must also use that energy more wisely than before. At the same time, we've found ourselves in a bit of a rut policy-wise. We've got a choice between some very broad and sweeping mandates, unprecedented spending, burdensome regulations, or perhaps all of these at once. This really isn't much of a choice at all. On paper and in words, most of us would agree that an all-of-the-above policy is the best path. But how many of us are using this term, all of the above, and yet we realize we're not all talking the same talk when it's all of the above? Our discussions of such a policy are anything but consistent. And in the absence of a proper balance between energy production and environmental regulation, oftentimes our nation is too hamstrung by these burdensome regulations, by delayed permits, and overzealous litigation. So Energy 2020 presents my vision for how we can move forward. And we're officially releasing it today. In fact, this is the first public place that I'm speaking about it is with you and the members at NARUC. I've got a copy. We're going to be delivering some more to members this afternoon. It's available on my website, which is energy.senate.gov. But the report features about 200 different policy recommendations. Now think about that. Far too often in Washington now, what we'll do is we'll take a big policy topic like energy and we'll say, by gosh, we need an all-of-the-above policy, and we spend maybe 2 pages talking about the good things that we're going to do with energy. But we really don't want to commit ourselves to some policy recommendations, because Lord knows you do that, and somebody might put an arrow on your back and say, woof, she supports more coal production, or she supports something that's going to reduce emissions. Yeah, if you don't put these recommendations and suggestions out there, how can you have a discussion about this? So you'll find about 200 different policy recommendations under 7 headings. Producing more, consuming less, that's not new to any of you. Clean energy technology, energy delivery infrastructure, effective government, environmental responsibility, and an energy policy that pays for itself. This is what we're calling our conversation starter. Now, Energy 2020 is not, and I emphasize again, not, a term sheet for a comprehensive energy bill. It's intended to be a source of ideas for discrete legislation that can attract, after vigorous debate, a strong base of support from a politically and geographically diverse group of members. I'm going to take these next steps in consultation with the committee members on the Energy Committee, including Chairman Wyden, including other senators. And I wanted to announce Energy 2020 here because I know how seriously this forum considers energy questions from a variety of different perspectives. And I also know that public, professional, civic, and business responsibilities require you to do just that. Even on a Monday after Super Bowl, you are tasked to do just this, to look at energy considerations. Now, I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest condensed version of Energy 2020 in case you don't rush out to the website as soon as I'm done here. A simple insight drives this, and it's 3 words. Energy is good. Would we not agree? Energy is good. Energy provides the basis for advanced civilization, improved standards of living. It allows us to live comfortably. It allows us to watch our Super Bowl game. It allows us to transport ourselves around in a cargo around our neighborhood and around the world. It allows us to produce food in the quantities necessary to feed the world's population. It allows us to manufacture, to communicate. It enables every aspect of modern life. And too often we forget this. Too often we forget just this basic notion that energy is good. Despite what many may argue, affordable energy is not the problem. It is exactly what we should be striving for. We have incredible potential in this country to produce energy, create good jobs, and these good jobs are not only within energy production, although certainly the people in my state of Alaska, in Louisiana, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, Texas, they will all attest to the importance of these energy jobs. These jobs extend, though, beyond energy production, flowing directly from the economic growth made possible by it. We have the resources, we have the capacity and the technological know-how to lead in energy production and benefit our economy, our security, and our environment. And as we rethink our nation's energy policy, it's also important to face the questions that are inherent with the risks of energy and resource development, including the questions about climate change. And I'll stand before you, and I was introduced, yes, I did have an interesting election that allowed me to get here, not necessarily with the support of my party, but I'm still a Republican. And as a Republican, I will stand before you and I will talk about climate change, and I will talk about the environmental responsibility that we have as producers and consumers of energy. That's important for us. We have to discuss these questions openly. We've got to find common ground on prudent steps to take in the face of uncertainty, because what is certain is that we can best address our environmental challenges if we are prosperous and secure. The cover of this report, and you can't see it from back there, you probably can't see it from up here, but the cover is a map of the world. And it's from space at night, so the grids are all lit up. And you can look at this, and you can tell where the prosperous countries in the world are. And it's because the lights are on. And so in my state of Alaska, as my 2 commissioners know, in too many parts of the state, our lights aren't on. In too many countries around the world, our lights aren't on. So when we talk about how we can address our environmental challenges, it is when we are prosperous and secure. So within our report, we declare 5 principles. In addition to energy is good, I'm trying to make this really simple for everybody through the morning fog of a Monday morning. Energy is good, and then there's 5 principles. It is in our national interest to make energy abundant, affordable, clean, diverse, and secure. I've even put them in alphabetical order for ease of memory. No acronyms here this morning, that's just going to confuse. Alphabetical is good. So first, let's talk about abundance. As the standard of living rises globally, demand for energy will continue to grow. And anyone who has experienced a blackout, it's amazing how this blackout last night just ties into everything I've got to say this morning. But anyone who's ever experienced a Super Bowl blackout or a gasoline shortage doesn't need an explanation of the value of energy abundance. We should aim to use our energy more wisely, but that's not a substitute for production or for measures that will increase the reliability of our systems and our supply. So second, this notion of affordability. The direct cost of energy affects the costs of everything that we do. And there is nothing else that impacts our economy so directly as energy. Whether it's individuals that are struggling to fill up their gas tanks or pay their electric bills, whether it's our business leaders that are making decisions on investments based on the cost of power server farms or smelters or whatever it is, we all recognize that lower cost is better. That's what everybody's seeking. That's what they're all seeking. Now, there are those who would have you believe, though, that the best way to reduce energy's indirect cost is simply to raise the direct costs so that we discourage energy use. But my friends, this is a self-defeating policy. Lowering the direct cost of energy is key to helping the U.S. economy recover and prosper. Absolutely key. Next is clean. As we attempt to minimize indirect costs or the externalities by driving up these prices, again, I would suggest that this is a policy that's doomed to economic and practical failure. Instead, we have to be aware of the impacts of every type of energy and make rational, informed decisions on what is acceptable, what needs to be mitigated, how do we do just that. Our challenge here is to reduce the cost of cleaner sources of energy, not raise the cost of existing sources. And when we talk about clean, what we've tried to do in this report is to give it some definition here. Too often, clean is treated as an absolute. But I would contend that it is better regarded as a comparison. A better definition of clean, in my view, and what we have used in this report, is less intensive in global lifestyle impacts than its likeliest alternative. So just consider that. Less intensive in global lifestyle impacts. So next, diversity. Every type of energy clearly has its own advantages, its own disadvantages, but overall, the more diverse our sources of energy, the more robust and secure our national energy grid and our fuel supplies are. And the more diverse our energy supply, the greater chance that we will have in achieving these game-changing breakthroughs that I think we would all acknowledge are so critical to how we move forward, whether it is to cleaner energy sources, more secure energy sources. It's these game-changing breakthroughs. And then the final point here is about security, something that we all talk about so much. The United States currently produces about 80% of our own energy, but we are still dependent, far too dependent on foreign oil. When we think about how we are able to develop our energy resources, some 80%, again, is produced here, but it's in that transportation sector that we really have that vulnerability. So for the sake of our nation's economy, for our national security, and the world's environment, we must strive to produce the largest possible percentage of our oil needs domestically and endeavor to obtain any of our imports from neighbors and strong allies, whether they be Canada, whether they be Mexico. Tapping our potential and restoring trust in our people will be a breakthrough in itself. Now, within our report, we've set out a number of important goals, and these are generally centered around where we need to be by 2020. But we can be fully energy independent from OPEC. We can diversify the use of coal and accelerate the commercialization of today's unconventional and alternative fuels. We can ensure that our renewable energy becomes more competitive and reestablish our supply chain for our critical minerals. We can modernize our electricity infrastructure and protect ourselves from cyber threats. We can ensure that research, rather than endless regulation, is the force behind the technological innovation. We can reform our environmental laws in a sensible manner that prevents their misuse and allows projects to proceed while still maintaining some of the highest environmental standards in the world. We can do this. I feel like I should say, si se puede. But it's a reminder to us that we are just limited. We're limited by ourselves, by our own regulations that we put out there, by our own, oh, we've tried that before. Our potential there is enormous, ladies and gentlemen. And I am one who says it's good to have goals. And perhaps the best part to me is that none of what I'm describing here will require burdensome mandates, heavy-handed regulations. None of this need rely on tax hikes or limitations on consumer choice. We can take a long look at existing policies, reform them, because they need to be reformed, and wind up in a far better place within a relatively short period of time. There is a lot that we can do. But the question is whether or not we will actually do it. Are we going to push ourselves to do this? Are we going to believe that we really can? Abundant energy is absolutely possible. There have already been signs of it becoming a reality. Technological breakthroughs have lowered the cost of producing previously uneconomic supplies. New technologies are making these clean energy sources, again, those sources that have less environmental impact than their most likely alternatives. These are coming forward. They're increasingly competitive. They're enabling energy efficiency to continue to improve, which is all good. Throughout the economy, diversification of energy and natural resource supplies is clearly apparent. And we can expect this trend to continue as electricity and natural gas, among other alternative fuels, as they continue to take hold. And the need to have more secure supplies is beginning to influence a consensus about additional steps that can and should be taken to renew our energy and our natural resource policies. Modern federal energy and natural resource policies will add to these trends in part by removing roadblocks that are erected by the outdated approaches that they replace. We must continue to fund, and I believe consider increased funding for the scientific research that is critical to continued progress. Only through this rigorous research will we produce the very dramatic breakthroughs that we need to reach a future in which clean energy is more than just a slogan, in which energy independence is more than just a slogan. And I'm confident that if we make the right choices today and accomplish these goals that we have detailed, we can secure a future in which energy and natural resources are affordable and abundant from secure and diverse sources, and we can continue to do so in a way that minimizes energy's impact on our environment. So the bipartisan Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate stands ready to meet these challenges. We've got a regular order consideration of energy legislation that we are hoping to advance. A renewal of targeted oversight of administrative action will help us develop a shared understanding of the facts and of our energy laws and institutions. Air and water quality will continue to improve in our own country and around the world, even as Americans become more and more likely to enjoy a healthy economy and truly the pursuit of happiness. So on this Monday morning, I would hope that with this introduction of our Energy 2020 report, that we can contribute as a meaningful step in that direction and in that important energy conversation. I again appreciate the opportunity to be with you today, a chance to share my work with you, and to let you all know that I look forward to working with you from your respective regions in the year ahead, and look forward to great productivity. So thank you for the opportunity to be with you.
The senator has a very busy schedule, but she has time for one question. So.
Who's the lucky one?
Looks like I drew the straw. Senator, I'm David Boyd from the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. Thank you for joining us again and making time in your schedule, and thank you for your thoughtful engagement and passion on the energy issues. I think it's something we need. I don't think you'll get much of an argument out of this room. You mentioned that one item you're interested in is energy policy that pays for itself. I suspect this doesn't fit in your moniker, but as you know, we at NARUC have been increasingly frustrated with the way the administration has handled the Yucca Mountain project for disposing of spent nuclear fuel, despite the fact that our ratepayers are religiously pouring hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars into the Nuclear Waste Fund to pay for that program. We know there's conversations going on in your committee and elsewhere in Congress. Perhaps you could give us some insight into how Congress might address this particular issue. Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, and I think we recognize that this is one of those areas where our government is not doing us any favors through the lack of certainty when it comes to the disposal of our nuclear waste. And when I say lack of certainty, we actually have a law in the books that says yucca. And this administration has basically chosen to go around that, to ignore that. Let me give you a quick update in terms of what's happening, at least on the Senate side. You'll recall last year the appropriators and the authorizers on the Energy Committee, Senator Bingaman and myself, and Senators Alexander and Feinstein on the appropriating side as chair and ranking of the Energy and Water Committee, decided to sit down and see if we could not find a path forward to move legislation that might get us off of high center, which is where we have been for far too long. We weren't successful in presenting a bipartisan package with the four of us. Senator Bingaman was very reluctant to advance anything that didn't demand a permanent storage solution first. Senator Bingaman, as you know, has retired. Senator Wyden has come in as the chairman of the committee, and just this past week, the four of us sat down to renew our conversation. And I will tell you, it was a very good conversation. There is general consensus among the four of us about a path forward, a kind of building off of what we had begun last year. Chairman Wyden has indicated that he hopes to have legislative language within the next several weeks that all of us, our staffs, can sit and kind of chew on and figure out exactly how we will move forward. But I think it is fair to say that there is a real commitment on the Senate side. Now, on the House side, it has been a little bit of a different story. There have been reports that, if it doesn't involve just a complete directive on yucca, we're not even going to talk about it. Here's where I am on that. I'm a believer that yucca is part of our answer in terms of long-term storage out there. We have studied this piece of real estate probably more than any real estate in this country. We've spent years and billions, and I hate to lose that investment. But I also don't want to be in a situation where 10 years from now, we are no further ahead with any kind of a solution, where individuals like you coming from the Minnesota utilities stand up and ask the same question. Because this is what's been going on. There has been no resolution. You continue to pay in with nothing on the other end. That's not acceptable. And so what we must do, I believe, is to find that path forward. We might have to do a detour around Yucca in order to get us to a solution that will work for all sides. So I'm hopeful that what we can do in the Senate will be considered by the House. If we can pass legislation that is bipartisan, that is accepted not only from different political parties, but different regions as a positive direction, then I think that the House will have to look at that very, very seriously. So we're going to do our work on the Senate side. We're not going to shut the House out. We will keep them engaged in the conversation. But we cannot go another decade. We cannot continue to have no answers to those who are so dependent on some certainty from their Congress. So we'll keep working at it. Thank you.